Lesson 2.7 deals with practicing different strategies with properties. So you're going to learn about 3 different properties today, and hopefully you've already watched the videos that I've given you, because if you haven't, you really need to watch them. They're really good, and you need to go back, and they really give you a good idea of what the commutative property, associative property, and distributive property. So if you remember, the commutative property is just adding numbers, and we know that when we add 2 numbers, it doesn't matter which way we add them. So we have a plus b. So for example, that's just saying that could be 5 plus 6 equals 11. And it's not going to matter if we switch those numbers, it's still going to equal 11. So that's the commutative property, where you're changing the numbers around, but it doesn't matter because it's still going to equal the same thing. The associative property of addition is when you have 2 numbers that are probably easier to add together first mentally, and then you can add your extra number, and then it doesn't matter which way you add them again because you're adding. So it says below, you can sometimes group or reorder numbers to help you use mental math more quickly. Explain how you could use the commutative and associative properties to help you add mentally. So let's look at our problem number 1. First thing that I'm going to do is see which numbers I could add the easiest. And I notice right away that there's 2 pairs of numbers that make 100,000. Because if I add 80 and 20, that makes 100,000. And if I add 30,000 and 70,000, that's also 100. So let's just write 2 numbers. I'm going to abbreviate. Make 100,000. So right away I have 300,000 plus 70,000 is 100,000. 20,000 plus 80,000. So right now I have 200,000, and then I just need to add my 49. So I added mentally all of them. So you could check 30,000 plus 70,000. And then you have 20 plus 80 equals, both equal 200,000 together. So that's how you're doing that one. So that property that we just used would be our associative property, because we found which numbers we could add together, and then we added our extra one at the end. So that would be our associative property. So let me kind of get some of this moved so we can look at our next one. It's not letting me erase, so we'll just move on. Okay, so the next one, we have 1 and 5/10 plus 1 and 2/10 plus 1 and 3/10 plus 1 and 678/10. So obviously we don't want to add this one because it's not as easy as the others. So we would probably want to add 1.5, 1.2, and 1.3 together. And if you notice, 5 plus 2 is 7, plus 3 is 10, so that makes 2.0, which is a whole, because this equals 10. We carry our 1, 2, 3, 4. Even I make mistakes. And then we would add our 1.678, which hopefully you would see that it's 5 and 678 thousandths. So again, we kind of use the commutative property there, where we just added, we could have added these any other way, and then we added our extra one, which could also be associative. So we're using kind of both of them at the same time. So why don't you go ahead and do number 3 and 4 on your own, okay? See which fractions or decimals you can add first. So use your properties. What can you add first mentally to make it easier? And then you're going to go ahead and do the same down here. So what you're doing is kind of what we did for number 1. You're telling me which numbers you found that you could add together. If you have any questions, raise your hand.